and council were made aware of as we moved forward on this. So again, a lot of moving parts. This is not to say that, but hey, there's ways of trying to work in concert. So again, I'm not going to usurp it. And I think what I would like to recommend to the council, if we could, that we regroup. I still have a few more days left. We regroup and talk about maybe reducing the size and, seeing how that works. Again, Ed Snikes is here, who was very active in working in concert with Leslie London, the attorney that is doing our COA work. And, that spending plan was approved for those units. So, but that being said, there's some room here. I'm thinking that you're...
Absolutely. Yeah. And with regard to the input from the neighbors, we just finished the due diligence period of the contract at the end of October. So we were just, before this council meeting came up, we're just going to start meeting on the design portion. So we haven't, other than those phone calls in September, haven't had an opportunity or the reason to reach out to the neighbors on the design phase because we hadn't started yet. So that's why we don't have elevations.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
2-6 Bly's would still be the same number of parking spaces and the same amount of traffic. That's not going to satisfy anybody that would come to the Board of Adjustment meetings. How low could you go in the number of units and still be profitable for you to move forward?
Well, it's not about profit because we're a non-profit. It's
I
really based upon...
Well, it's cost effective.
Cost effective, and it's not really as much our call as it is the town's call. The town has already spent, I believe...
A lot of money.
$500,000?
No.
At the very minimum, $500,000.
On the purchase of the property and reimbursing Newbridge for soft costs. And the town doesn't even own the property, but has the money invested in it. So we were brought in to help kind of rectify that situation and maximize the number of COA credits or, to satisfy your obligation. So if it's not 12 and it's 5 or it's 10, we're happy to do it. It just might not be the best use of all that money and the property since it's already been invested.
Well, you still have to go before the zoning
Yes,
board.
yes. Correct.
So, I guess that's the best place to start.
No, well, before they spend the money for architect fees and everything, it'd be better if there is a way to make this more palatable to the residents by reducing the number. Better that they know now than after they go through the cost of architect fees.
That's why I suggested the meeting, Mike. That's where that discussion
I'm agreeing with
happened.
you.
Thank you very much for agreeing with me.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Township Clerk?
No report at this time, Council President. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
CFO, Treasurer Report?
That's the discussion on the bills list and best practice.
Should I use this? Yes, first thing is the best practices. Inventory, what that is every year we have to fill out a questionnaire. It consists of about 61 questions. And this year they were trying to evaluate the municipality's core competencies, in addition to data collection, okay? And the problem with these questions is that if we have too many no's, they hold back our funding from the state, okay? State aid.
Who's they?
What's that?
Who's they?
The state.
The state
This is
holds back
reported to
our
the state,
full
yes.
funding.
They can hold back our funding. So it's very important that we have our act together, basically. So some of the questions are stuff like, do you fill out the ethics, or does everybody do those forms of financial disclosure statements? The AFS, the annual financial statement, is on time. Your debt statement is on time. That the audit was done on time, things like that. Also, they ask about pilots. You'll see they asked about whether we're doing a master plan, new master plan, which we're doing, whether we have a planner on staff, things like that. You can read through it. They also asked if we were interested in doing that SALT project. SALT, I guess what that is really accepting contributions or from people versus that they could deduct from their taxes versus property taxes, which they ask, have you discussed it? So you'll see that in there as well. They also asked about electric vehicles. Are we thinking about these things? So you say, well, we have a possibility of that. So all in all, we had, of the 61 questions, we had 57 yeses and 4 nos. The nos are, did we have the budget on time? It is what it is. Some of the audit comments are, I had to say yes, that there was a repeated audit comment, such as you are improving your grants, clearing out the grants. Yes, every year we are improving. So I said to the auditor, you have to be more specific. I mean, I can't say no to that question. You're always improving every year. So that was one of the comments to him. The personnel manual has not been done and completed yet, so that's on its way. That'll come off of this. And the one other thing is our ratio of average assessed value to true market value. When it hits 85%, we're supposed to contemplate going out and doing a reassessment, revalve the entire town. We've been between 83.74 and 83.13 for years. Oh, I guess about 5 years. Is it worth it to do a reval for us? We just increased, as a matter of fact, to 83.74. So our assessor feels it isn't worth the money. It's extremely expensive, but we are in discussion about what it would take. Obviously, we're going to have to contemplate doing that in the future.
Danny will know when the right time is.
Danny, but unfortunately on this questionnaire, it says, are you at 85% or lower? And I had to say yes. Actually the answer is no, we aren't 85% and above. So those are the four no's for us. The good news is that because we did, I think we're at 97%, you'll see it at the end, we do get our full funding. This is an excellent report. You take your time to look at it. You're more than welcome to speak to me about it. We submit it on November 12th, but we are obligated to have you look at it and present it to you. But this is reviewed by business administrator, me, the assessor, Colette as well. So, yeah. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I don't know. You haven't had a chance really to look at it.
No, we haven't.
The other thing is the list of bills. We've talked about this for a long time. We in finance have no problem with it. What we're going to do is each council meeting, we're going to give you a list of bills that are going out for the first half of the month. So today you see only 2 days really. Well, the end of the month you're seeing that we put out on the 16th, 15th, 16th, and 17th of the month. You have we ask that you look at them. You have a motion. We're going to motion approval on these bills versus you just seeing a list of checks on the website. I like the idea. I open transparency to everybody. We do list all the checks up on the website for the public. And the other thing we are going to show is tell you how much our estimated payroll will be on the next payroll. However, you're going to see a different bill list each meeting, okay? So this is just half of the month. Additionally, you will see any checks that we cut from the 16th through to the end of the month on the next group, okay? This is our first go-round with this, so please take a look at it, and, I offer, please come with me, any opinion or any questions, we're open to that. The checks have not been cut, so we'll be doing that in the next couple of days, but of course you have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Council President, if I may. First of all, I want to thank Ann and her staff for both their work on the best practices checklist and meeting my request to add the bill list and authorization for payroll to each of the council meetings. As Ann said, the bill list will appear, and as will the authorization for payroll, on both council meetings during the month, and that's just so that we can keep a good pace in the finance office in keeping up with the authorization to pay bills, and then of course our payroll periods. Going back to the best practices checklist, I just want to say that my observation of being able to answer in the affirmative to 57 of the 61 questions is exemplary. The township should be proud of their ability to do that and meet those best practices. Councilman DePero just whispered in my ear that he's been through this process before. This was an initiative started by Governor Christie and continues under the current administration. But to the benefit of the new council members, the questions do rotate on a yearly basis. Some will stay, some will go, with new best practice questions being added in subsequent years.
Yes, these are very different. As a matter of fact, these questions are very different from what we've seen in the past. We've seen, do you have the New Jersey health benefits? One of the questions they asked, and we had to answer no. Although it may have been to our best interest not to have them, it didn't matter because we had to answer no. But I believe these questions are much better,
Yeah, they did.
don't you? I mean,
Yes, yeah,
when you looked at them,
absolutely.
we all reviewed them.
Yeah.
I can't reach. Can you
Yeah,
see?
no, you can.
Any other questions?
All right,
Thank you,
Thank
Ann.
you.
Thank you, Ann.
Okay, township offices, committees, reports, anything?
Not at this time.
Okay, engineering report, Lake Parsippany Road Improvements, Phase 4 project, construction of the 6th phase of Lake Parsippany Road Improvements projects remains in progress. Issues in the water main installation and bacterial testing have delayed the project. Work will continue as long as the weather is favorable. No council action required. 2018 road resurfacing projects, the milling and resurfacing of various streets throughout the township is complete. No council action required. Old Bloomfield Ave Phase 1 project, the first phase of the Old Bloomfield Avenue project is nearing completion. The sanitary sewer main lining has been completed and the roadway will be paved and striped by the end of the month. No council action required. Moraine Area Streets Phase 2 project, the second phase of this project is approximately 70% complete. Construction is expected to last through the fall. No council action required. Mount Tabor Area Streets Phase 3 improvement project, construction of this project is approximately 30% complete and will continue through the end of the construction season. No council action required. Draining issues, engineering and the Public Works Department have investigated draining issues on Bromley Drive and Stafford Road. The Public Works Department was on site to clean drainage ditches, remove roots from drainage pipes, and install additional catch basins. Both systems are flowing freely and working well. The Public Works Department should be commended for doing great work on these challenging sites. Homes on both sides of Cherry Lane are still experiencing draining issues, which are believed to be caused by the extremely high groundwater table. Crews have been on site cleaning and video inspecting drainage lines and will continue to investigate till the source of the problem is identified. No council action required. Bids taken November 8th, 2018, transportation and disposal of sewage sludge cake. To be taken November 15th, transportation and disposal of sewage sludge cake. November 20th, invitation for bids from New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, licensed electric power suppliers for electric generation services. Quotations, proposals, qualifications, none. This time I entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Second. Take a
Motion.
motion, I'm sorry. Second, Grignani.
Okay, Mr. DePiero made the motion for open up the public, and Mrs. Grignani seconded.
You already read the report into the record, the engineering report?
Yes.
Wow, okay. So Mr. DePiero made the motion and Ms. Grignani seconded the motion. Roll call. Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes. The floor is open to the public.
Okay, if you do come forward, please state your name and address. You'll be given 5 minutes.
Mary Przicki, Marcella Road. Just a comment, because I didn't realize this presentation was going to be made on Henry Street. If Habitat did do their due diligence, I think they would have requested how many people came to a council meeting. I can't remember the exact date, but more than 3, with concerns on that particular project. And they could have, even if could have reached out to the town and asked for those council meeting dates when all those people showed up, and sent them invitations to tonight's meeting, because more than 3 people would show up. I mean, those people had genuine concerns. I mean, they're in a residential neighborhood. Their lot coverages and their houses are within zoning regulations, and 28 parking spaces on an acre plus those buildings is a little much in my book if I was living up there, to tell you the truth. I mean, it might be a good cause and everything, and it might fill our COA obligations. But is it fair for the people who are living there now to have a project like that? If it can be scaled down to what they said, they didn't object to New Bridge. Not one person came up here and objected to the New Bridge project, as I recall, okay? Maybe you want to check the minutes back to that meeting, but I think you guys have to take that into consideration. Why didn't they ask those people to come? Tonight, there's nobody here. There would have been a lot of people here if those people on Park Road knew. That's my comment on that one. But my other project is I put up political road signs and I take them down because I don't really like them littering the highway. So for the past 2 days, I've been taking them down. And I want the council to consider a resolution about single plastic bags. You sent a resolution out to the state legislature supporting the single use of plastic bags to be banned, and that there would be a fee for them, et cetera, because of the litter that they caused. Well, when I was taking the signs down, I was very curious to read that on only 2 of the signs, they were actually made from recycled plastic, right? And the others were not. Only 2 candidates bothered to put their signs on recycled plastic, all right? If you write a resolution, if you're concerned about plastic and in the environment, this is all over the country. It's not just our town, all right? So the fact of the matter is I think there should be legislation in Trenton that says if you are going to make and put signs all over the place, make them out of the recycle, ban anything else, make them out of recycled plastic, or, well, I wouldn't even make them out of paper because they last, and then have a way that you can recycle them back. You're asking people to recycle garbage, single-use grocery bags back? Why aren't you asking the elected officials who say the general public are doing something wrong? Well, they should maybe start setting the example to use recycled plastic. Let me take the signs down because I did
1 minute, Mayor. 1 minute.
Oh, Jesus. I did 40 of them. Oh, and I got to talk fast because then I don't get my other point across. God darn it all. But anyhow, listen. Don't count that. All right. The thing of it is you lost my train. When I went to recycle, I could take the metal and throw it in the metal container. The guy said, okay. I said, okay, now where can I take these? By the way, these are the 2 people that used recycled plastic. I said, okay, now what do I do with the plastic bags? He said, throw them in the garbage. That's disgusting.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Oh, Jesus. Forget it. But anyhow, you are elected officials. You put up signs. Maybe you can petition the state of New Jersey, who's so caring about the environment, to get something done about these. And that way, when you take them down, you'd have a place to put them. I can't take these to the ShopRite. Oh, and I had one more thing
Thank
to
you.
say, and you
Can I
didn't let
just,
me.
do we have anything, any sort of ordinance that, where they have to take them down by a certain time?
Yes, there
Yes,
is an
we do.
ordinance for political
And
signs.
when they don't, because they don't?
When
what
they
do we-
don't, then we notify them. We call them and we
We
contact them. and
notify the candidate,
We notify the
not the
candidates.
people who put all the signs up.
No, yeah, thank you, Mr. DePiero, exactly. Yes, he's
So we
correct.
notify the candidate?
We notify the candidate that the signs are still up.
Okay.
How many days do they have to take them down?
The ordinance, no, I believe it's 14. I believe it's 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah, 2 weeks.
But I'll
That's
verify
a long
that, but
time,
I'm
'cause
almost...
they blow around.
Go ahead,
Mary, that recyclable plastic, that means that someplace,
But it was Republicans that recycled.
I know,
I don't mean to insult the Democrats.
Well, that's a
No.
good point. Thank you. Thank you.
my point though is, if that's recycled plastic, then
Then why
somebody
didn't
is
they
recycling.
That's it.
We just,
They're making it out of recycled material, like recycled plastic bags.
well, somebody's, in other words, there's someplace
That you can get.
that will take plastic
them,
and
yeah.
recycle it. We need to, we need, that,
I put them in
that's my
ShopRite.
question.
I found
Where
one,
is
I
that
put it in
place?
ShopRite's plastic bag.
ShopRite won't be able to do these.
They won't, oh, they're too heavy?
If you were able to take them to the town recycle center, and then they know where where to send these, you're better off. Because you could find these in any woods for 3-4
Sure,
years, the way
that's
they
right.
blow away,
Sure,
like their single paper bags.
yeah.
Maybe we need to
Thank
ask
you, Mary.
Go
DPW.
ahead.
We need to talk to
Just to try
Chad.
to- yeah.
He's a we have a full-blown recycling coordinator. We should be able to get a question answered.
Even if we don't make money, just someplace
We're
to
not,
send them.
you don't
Yeah.
make money anymore, no.
I know.
Good.
Yeah.
Just
No,
someplace to send
but
it.
someplace to keep it, you know.
Encourage all you elected officials who run for office to use recycled plastic.
For the record, Mary, we're going to need more money donated because those are much more expensive.
For the record.
You don't need 50 signs on Route 46 that say vote for me. For
Go ahead,
God's
Bob.
sakes, I could read one.
Through you, Council President, if I may just go back to Mary's comments about the Habitat for Humanity presentation this evening, just for clarification, if that project does move forward in any form, they are going to require variances from the Board of Adjustment. When that happens, there will be a 200-foot notice issued to all the surrounding property owners, alerting them of the meeting. Tonight was really a courtesy presentation for the edification of the council and the public, so there was no requirement, while I appreciate the suggestion, there was no requirement for notification, but for the formal action to be considered by the zoning board, there will be the 200-foot requirement notification.
Right.
Ultimately, you're only allowed to ask questions in front of Board of Adjustments. Statements are at the end, and it's irrelevant. More statements are more appropriate at the council than it is there.
Okay. My name is Bob Venezzi. I live at 102 Brooklawn Drive. I have a number of questions about the district at 1515, their pilot. And it's probably going to take me 5 minutes just to read the questions. So what I'd like to do is just read them, give you a copy, and then you can go one by one and have Mr. Hanley answer them if he can. Is that acceptable?
No,
Wow.
it is not, because, Jim, do you want to respond to that? Because that was not what we talked about in the closed session. Because we were talking about the topic of this evening was to talk about the Board of Education as it relates to students. It was modified, I thought, when I met with Mr. Venezia the other day, that we were going to have more of a presentation. That's not my understanding, so I just need clarity on that.
Well, the ordinance to authorize the pilot agreement has not been introduced yet. As a member of the public, he's free to ask any question he wants as long as it concerns public business. So.
You can
we have
ask the
him
questions,
just-
but is Mr. Hanley going to respond to
Oh,
all those
well then-
questions?
No, I don't
That's the
think-
point I'm making. I'm not
Okay.
talking about,
Then can I
Can
get
you-
answers from
Can you
whoever
give
can answer?
the clerk that list of
Certainly.
questions, and we can have them, your questions answered to you directly?
Sure.
Okay.
And we can be prepared to answer the questions at the time the ordinance is introduced, if there's an ordinance introduced, so.
And then that doesn't give me any time to prepare to, you know.
Have a rebuttal.
Would it be possible,
What?
would it be possible some of
It's difficult
those,
for us to respond to questions that we don't know what the questions are, so.
no, he just gave some questions, so. is
I
it-
know, but I'm probably gonna have to look at the draft agreements in order to answer the question.
Right, that's what I mean. Is it possible to get him answers to some of those questions before?
Sure.
the next-
And,
Okay.
and there's going to be probably more because I Oprah'd these are based on just what I know about the project myself.
Okay.
I Oprah'd the,
Well,
the
if
documents.
If I would ask you,
And when I read that, I'm sure I'm going to have
as
more.
you come up with more questions, if you want to just get them directly
Just
to.
email them to me as you come up
Okay.
with them, Bob, and then this way I can just forward them, and we can try to get you the answers prior to the
Okay.
meeting to give you time to adequately prepare.
Okay, so I'll read them all in right now. As I said, I've Oprah'd all of the documents pertaining to the pilot because of my concern that the terms and the conditions contained within it are very unfavorable to Parsippany. For now, my questions are as follows. How many retail units are there in the project? Are all the residential units rental apartments, or are some of them individually owned like a condo? Approximately how much will it cost to complete all phases of the project, including any borrowing? When the project is fully operational, how much revenue is projected for the township? And this one I got an answer for already. How much tax would Parsippany receive if the project were taxed in the same manner as other real property in the township? And I got that answer from the tax assessor, and he said he estimates it would bring in $3.8 million, which is a far cry from what we're projected to get from the pilot. The next question, does the site have any environmental issues requiring remediation? If so, who pays for the remediation? Parsippany is a party with Morris County Improvement Authority in a bonding agreement with the district at 1515. What is the face value of the bonds being issued? What is the money for the bonds being used for? Who is legally responsible to pay for the principal and interest payments on the bonds, Parsippany or the district at 1515? Does Parsippany assume any responsibility if the 1515 does not fulfill their bond payment obligations? And then there are 68 unit affordable housing. There's a 68 unit affordable housing obligation associated with this project. What happens to that obligation after the termination date of the pilot? Do the 34 built-in affordable housing units retain affordable status after the termination date? That is, is the affordable housing designation permanent? And let us, for the other 34 units, suppose Parsippany uses money from the Housing Trust Fund to deed restrict another 34 units from an existing apartment complex so that they can be designated as affordable. Those affordable housing units expire at the end of the agreement with the landlord, right? So at the end of 30 years, and by the way, the 34, I know the answer to my own question. A, the affordable housing units that are built in to the project, they do expire after 30 years, which was a surprise to me. So at the end of 30 years, all 68 of the affordable units are gone, and the money that the district at 1515 originally contributed to the Housing Trust Fund is also gone. At that point...
1 minute, Bob. 1 minute.
Okay. I'm not worried about it. I got a backup plan. At that point, in order to replace the 68 affordable units were lost, Parsippany would either have to come up with the money on its own or allow another 441 unit apartment complex to be built. The same cycle would then repeat every 30 years.
30 seconds.
Okay. Rather than stop in the middle of a... Well, I'll try to sneak one more in there. The district at 1515 pays an annual service charge to Parsippany equal to 10% of annual gross revenues. During various presentations that have been given, I thought that Parsippany was going to receive the entire 10%. However, the first $450,000 of this 10% goes to paying off the bonds. As a result, Parsippany receives substantially less than the 10% of the gross revenues, and indirectly, that does seem to be paying for. We do seem to be paying for the bonds. Is this correct? Am I understanding here correct?
It's time for the backup.
Before the
I
backup
yield.
is, I just want to go on record as I had about a 2-hour meeting with both Bob, Mary, and Pat Patachia in my office, and I want to thank the gentleman who was hired to help us with our going from market to affordable units. I believe some of the answers that were read into the record were addressed directly by Bob asking questions of Randy from the firm that we hired. And there'll be more information coming in answer to that. But I was glad at least we were able to have some solid answers coming directly from someone that's been doing this and working on this out of Edison. Thank you. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, my name is Pat Venezia. I also live at 102 Brooklawn Drive, and I'm going to continue with Bob's statement. Okay, to the microphone. The terms and conditions in the pilot agreement are numerous and seem very complex. It also seems that Parsippany is being asked to bear all of the risks. For example, I have already brought up the fact, Bob has already brought up the fact, that Parsippany must pay $22,000 per student for each student that exceeds the project estimate. And also, I would like to state what Mary said to me in the back when the other gentleman mentioned something about the $10,000 versus the $22,000. We pay the taxes based on the $22,000, not $10,000. And if we do have all these extra students, we may have to build more additions to some of our schools. Just a little extra. Now I'm back to Bob. For another, if Phase 2 doesn't get built, the amount of money that Parsippany will receive annually is barely more than the $420,000 that Parsippany receives today without the project. For another, the interpretation and implementation of every one of these complex clauses could involve the township in litigation. A much simpler agreement is needed that compensates the developer for the lost income from the affordable units, while at the same time maximizes the revenue that Parsippany receives. I ask you to consider the following alternate pilot agreement. 1. The developer physically builds 68 affordable units in the complex. 2. The township charges no taxes for these 68 units, but assesses the remainder of the land, retail units, and residential units in the same manner as other real property in the township. This solution is simple, understandable, fair, litigation-proof, and addresses our affordable unit obligation. What do you think?
Thank you. Okay, see no one else come forward, entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
I used to wear both hats.
All right. I'd ask all the council members to look at the ordinances, see the status of adopted ordinances. Ordinance 2018:23, 24. The ones for introduction. Second reading. 25, 26.
I have a question, not a question, I have a comment on 26.
Go ahead.
There is a typo, I believe. The second paragraph, the last sentence, it is mentioning that there is a change of sergeants from 19 to 6. I believe it should be 19 to 20. Second paragraph, last sentence.
Second paragraph, please.
I think Ann's
Yes.
showing the chief. Okay, chief?
Should be 20.
Yes, it is a typo there.
Yeah.
Should
Number
be.
of sergeants, positions in police department table. Organization
Right.
Yes,
It's correct in your table of,
down below.
yes, it is correct, but not in that
I'm sorry. and
So
that
can we note
paragraph
that, where it says
Sentence.
whereas?
second,
was- Oh, the second
First,
whereas.
first page,
clause.
second whereas.
sentence.
right.
Right,
Colette, do you have that?
yeah, okay,
Okay,
good
all
catch.
right. Okay.
Chief, we're good.
Thank you.
I think we're good, Chief.
Right.
And we just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure
we're
you
good.
saw it.
It's correct in the table, but not
Yes.
in
Yeah.
the
Right.
recital. I got it, okay. Yep.
The table of organization is
Right.
correct, but not in that paragraph.
Through you, Council President, we'll have it corrected for the introduction at the next meeting.
Okay, Ms. McCarthy, non-consent agenda?
Wait, excuse me, I'm sorry. The number 3, an ordinance creating a permit requirement to operate a crane? What is that all about? Is that-
Through you, Council President.
Go ahead.
This is an ordinance that has been circulated and adopted by a number of municipalities throughout the state of New Jersey, and it really has to do with crane safety. So if a private developer or some other utility is coming in and operating a crane, for instance, erecting a cell tower or something of that nature, they would have to obtain a permit from downstairs in order to operate that crane for the period of days that they would be required to do so. There would be a fee associated with it, and in the ordinance there is an outline of safety procedures and precautions that need to be taken for whoever is operating that crane. And we will circulate well prior to the introduction the full ordinance for your review.
They have expertise in that?
Who?
Anybody who has to evaluate it?
Well, the
This
permit.
was not in the advanced agenda that we saw.
Correct.
This is added on at the last minute without our knowledge. We've got to address that because
I'd like to have more
if you want
information
to,
on it.
if you want to add, the administration wants to add something to the agenda, after we get the preliminary a week ahead of time and have had time to go through the agenda, okay? For you to stick something in like this, last minute, us not even being made aware of it,
But
is not right.
I thought that was already established. Nothing was supposed to be put on
Well,
the agenda once we received the agenda on a Thursday for a Tuesday's meeting.
If you
And
want
this-
something else on the agenda, then it should be a request to add something to the agenda, okay? And then the council could approve it.
No.
But just to stick it in here is not proper procedure.
The only point I will make, and I agree with much of what both council members just indicated, is that we are now heading towards the end of the year. We are unable to introduce and adopt an ordinance in 2 different calendar years. So if the only opportunity, if this was to be heard in 2018, would be for it to be introduced at the November action meeting and adopted at the December action meeting. Otherwise, the entire process would need to wait to start to January.
Understood, but the process should still be, you notify the council that you want to add something to the agenda. And so we're aware of it and we can discuss it without just having it
I have another,
come up here with the osmosis.
So noted.
Go ahead.
how many cell towers are we going to be operating or adding to that we need? What are they doing at the present time?
It's
When
not
I
just
was-
it's not through you, Council President. It's not just cell towers. It's any use for a crane to have been
Just use that
need,
as
a
an
need for a crane to be operated
Okay.
for any type of
Okay.
construction project. I use cell towers as an example.
Okay.
But
Alright.
any type of construction project that would happen within the township limits.
When,
How many, I'm
sorry,
sorry,
no, go
excuse
ahead.
me. The type of crane that I'm thinking that this ordinance is referring to would be something that, a crane that we're building maybe a 10, 12-story building. Is this what this ordinance or
We have
this
we have a
indication?
6-story height limitation on Parsippany.
Okay,
So there can't be any humongous cranes like building skyscrapers.
But then we have to have something on the books already in regard to the cranes that are being used.
Right now, I believe it's unregulated, but I can confirm that for you tomorrow.
do the permits,
There is state regulation of cranes right now through the Department of Labor.
But it's not regulated locally.
It's not regulated locally, that's correct.
I don't see the need to regulate it locally.
What, I don't understand.
What would have happened, Jim, what would have happened if when PSE&G was putting those Jolly Green Giants through Parsippany?
Right, so that would be exempt from local regulation because that's regulated by the Board of Public Utilities.
Okay, so, and since we have a 6-story limit in construction in Parsippany, I really don't see the need for additional permits and to further load, a workload on the housing department that can't issue permits on time.
Would a cell tower fall under public utility?
No, probably not.
No.
That'd be subject to local regulation.
With the council president's permission, I'd like the authorization to circulate the ordinance, and then maybe touch base with all of you as to whether or not there's support to pursue it. And if there's not support to pursue it, then we'll pull it from the agenda for the action meeting later in the month.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there,
Any other-
is there a reason why the administration wanted to get this one in before the end of the year? Why couldn't this have waited till January?
I think that
Is there some project coming up that we don't know about?
no, I don't believe it's project. I don't believe it's project driven. I think that this was something that the mayor's office had been considering for some time and waited until the discussion with my office during the transition with Ellen. This was one of the leftover items that I asked Khaled to list, just because of the time-sensitive nature of not being able to introduce and adopt in separate calendar years.
Yeah, and we did state that we would still continue to look into it until the next meeting, so.
All right.
Any other questions on those?
It needs council support, so we'll defer to the council once it's circulated.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, non-consent agenda. Resolutions R 2018-173, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany authorizing a grant agreement between the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills and the State of New Jersey by and for the Department of Environmental Protection, grant identifier FS 19-024. Motion to approve the resolution above?
Second.
Okay, so motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy. Ms.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, if everyone could take a look at the consent agenda. Also, on page 7, the payment for bills, voucher list, authorization of payment for November 16th, regular miscellaneous payroll estimated at $1.7 million. Payment of bills for voucher list, November 4th through the 16th.
Council President, through you, if we could get a formal motion on items 1 and 2.
Yes.
Just so
Yes.
we can keep the bill
So if I
list.
can entertain a motion for items 1 and 2.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded. No, motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes. Good night,
Floor's
everyone.
closed. Good night. Have a good night.